Good morning students. Welcome back to online classes of Global Navigation Satellite System. This is our fourth class. In the previous class we have discussed about the different segments of your GPS, because in GNSS very first chapter or the whole GNSS is completely about your GPS only, right? Global Position System. So in the last class we have discussed about the segments, what are the three segments and how GPS works. So the principle of operation of GPS was trilateration techniques or triangulation that we have discussed here in the last class, and the three segments that is your space segment, then control segment and the user segment. I hope everyone has gone through with the video properly and you are clear with the three segments of the GPS. So in the last class we have also discussed about the principle of operation. I just want to revise once again the principle of operation, like how it is done and what are the principle of operation. Okay, so how actually this GPS works we have given in the last class. So as I have already told in the last class that GPS works on the technique which is called as triangulation technique, or it is also called as trilateration techniques. So in that one we require two data. One is almanac data and another one is your Amphoris data, where in Amphoris data you'll get to know that where actually your satellite is, and almanac data tells you about what is the data that is being transmitted by your satellite. So all these comes under your working and all triangulation. So the main principle of operation through which your what we can say your GPS work is your time of operation, okay, or time of arrival. So the GPS is mainly based upon the work principle that is called as your time of arrival. So GPS is based on time of arrival concept. In this time of arrival concept, distance is measured by computing the time differences. So in GPS, the receiver measures its distance to the visible satellite in terms of transit time of the signal. So the transit time is a difference between the time the signal arrives at the receiver and the time when it was transmitted by the satellite. This gives the time, and this time is multiplied to the speed of light or the speed of the signal, that is given as your 3 × 10⁸ meters per second, which is the distance or we can also called as a pseudo random ranges or pseudo random codes over there. Okay, these are not the true codes, but these are the only codes which have been fundamental part of your GPS and are mostly used. I'll explain you clearly once again. The GPS works on the principle of operation. What actually operation is time of arrival. We use time of arrival, and that concept is done by using your trilateration method, because we need at least 3 satellites to get the proper time. Fourth one is one more which is used to proper correlate or to correct that particular answer or the time. So here the GPS, the principal main operation is based upon your TOA. TOA is nothing but your time of arrival, which is nothing but distance is measured by computing the time differences. Which time difference you are going to find? The time when your signal is transmitted from the satellite to the receiver. Okay, one we have received and which we have transmitted. So the transmit time is a difference between the time the signal which is arrived to the receiver and the time when which is transmitted to the satellite, from the ground station to the satellite when it has been transmitted. That difference minus from the satellite it is given to the user, that is your transit time, and that transit time is multiplied with the speed of the signal, and your signal is what we will say it is the moving with the speed of the light. So that's the reason we are giving it as 3 × 10⁸ meters per second. So that is how you are going to find out how much time it is going to take. That is called as your time of arrival, the basic concept of your GPS. So here we are determining how far the satellites are. So the principle of operation we have given one more here. TOA or the time of arrival is equals to S into T. What is S? Velocity of light, because your what we can say the data what you are transmitting is transmitting through the velocity of light. So the distance D is equals to velocity of light, that is equals to 3 × 10⁸ meters per second into travel time of that satellite, or we can also say it as transit time of the satellite. Transit time is nothing but the difference of the time between when you are transmitting the signal or the data from the ground station to the satellite or from the transmitter to the satellite minus or the difference from the satellite to the receiver or the user station. That difference is called as your transmit time. So the D is equals to velocity of light or the signal of that particular light into your travel time of the satellite. So as to find out all this, to determine the location of the receiver and all these things, we have to know that where the satellites are in the space and how far are the satellites. How far are the satellites can be found by using DOM method, and location of that particular the satellites or the particular locations can be found by using your trilateration method. So trilateration method is the one to determine the location of the receivers, and it is to find where the satellites are and how far are your satellites. So this is what the principle of working or how it works, correct? So this is your trilateration method, correct? This approach of estimating position by measuring the three distances is called as your trilateration. So in three-dimensional positioning, the satellites are required, and however there is a difference between time of receiving clock and the satellite clock, which is called as your clock bias. So these affects the transit time calculated by the receiver. So that is the need we require here for the satellite, where this biasing can be removed. Okay, so hence at least 4 satellites are required to be visible in the sky for the calculation of your user position. So we require here 3 satellites. I'll repeat it once again. This is the time when multiplied with the speed of the light, which gives the distance or the pseudo ranges. Pseudo range is not the true range, but it is mostly used or approximates the errors. So similarly, these pseudo ranges are measured from 3 satellites, and this approach of estimating the position by using 3 satellites or the 3 distances is called as your trilateration or triangulation method. So in 3-dimensional positioning, 3 satellites are required, and there is a difference between the time of the receiver clock, means the user end, and the satellite clock, which is your space segment, which is called as your clock bias. So what I have said, there will be some difference between the receiver clock as well as the satellite clock. So this affects the transit time calculated by the receiver. So a 4th satellite is required to obtain the clock bias. Hence at least 4 satellites are required to be visible in the sky for the calculation of your user position. So in order to determine these 4 unknown variables, 4 independent equations are required, and that equations I have given over here. I hope everyone is clear with the principle of operation of the GPS, because it is very, very important. It works on the principle of trilateration, and one more principle means how it works actually is a time of arrival, means the transit time is very important, but you'll get some difference of the transit time. So as to reduce that one, we require the 4th satellite, which is your by using these 4 satellites you will be obtaining the proper positioning of the user. So for this one we require 4 unknown variables with 4 unknown independent equations. So here on the earth somewhere you are going to find the position. On that one we are having 4 satellites, satellite 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are the 4 satellites what we are having. 4 satellites for the pseudo range measurements. And the ranging equations of these 4 satellites are given as. So these are the equations what I have given over here. So R1, R2, R3, R4 are nothing but the ranges of your satellites, and XU or XV, these are XU, YU, ZU are the user positions. For different user positions you are going to calculate. Fine. So on that one you will be having some clock bias also. That clock bias also we are going to calculate over here, and this gives you the user position. And X1, Y1 and Z1, these parameters will be giving you the satellite positions. As we are having for 3 satellites, okay, these first 3 satellites we are considering. So that satellites I am calculating as X1, XY1 and Z1, parameters of the first satellite, parameters of the second satellites, parameters of the third satellites, and these are the parameters of the 4th satellite. So the ranging equations for the 4 satellites can be calculated as X1 minus XU into X1 minus XU plus Y1 minus YU into Y1 minus YU plus so on, which gives you the range and the clock position of that particular satellite. So the ranging equations of the satellite is given in these terms for the 4 different satellites. where XU, YU and ZU are the user position coordinates, CB is the clock bias, and X1, Y1, Z2 till X4, Y4, Z4 are the coordinates of the 4 satellites, which are measured ranges of these 4 satellites respectively. So this is how you are going to calculate the values of your particular 4 satellites, and you are going to obtain the ranges also. Fine. So this was about, once again I have revised, or it was, I hope it was very clear for you people about the principle of operation, or how the GPS will be working. Fine. So this next we are going to see about the orbit of your GPS and orbit mechanism. Okay. So the technique which we use for the GPS is triangulation method, and the principle of operation is time of arrival. TOA is the time of arrival, is the principle of operation, and the technique which we are using for this one is your triangulation method. So before we go to the orbits of the satellites, I would like to also discuss something about the pseudo-random codes and the travel time of the satellites. So the travel time of your satellites is completely what I have said, it's completely based upon your pseudo-random ranges, and the principle of operation is TOA. Please to remember once again and then, the principle of operation is time of arrival, and the technique which we are using to find out the user position is called as triangulation or trilateration method. Okay. Now here these are the pseudo-random codes which we are using the unique ID for the satellites. From satellite it is been transmitting to the ground station. Okay. So these are the pseudo-random codes which you have already studied in your last MCC also, mobile communication. So here the travel time of the satellite, where the satellite will be giving you the data or the short repeating data of the pseudo-random codes to the ground station or the control or the monitor station, from where it is again given to the user position. So if the receiver applies the different pseudo-random codes to the SV signal, SV signal is nothing but your satellite vehicle signal. Okay, the satellite. So the receiver applies the different pseudo-random codes to the satellite signal what it has been given, then there is no correction. So no correction with the different pseudo-random codes. If when the receiver uses the same code as your satellite signal and the codes begin to align then some signal power will be detected. So there is some blurring will be found out when you will be applying the same codes which are sent by the satellite. So when the receiver uses the same code as the satellite vehicle has been sent and the codes begin to align, then we will be getting some signal power, and that power will be detected over there. So that is second case. In the third case, what happens when the receiver and the signal vehicle the satellite vehicle codes align completely, then full signal power will be detected and full correlation will be obtained, so that you will get a code phase log of the receiver and the satellite pseudo-random codes. So the receiver compares these two codes to determine how much it needs to delay its code to match the satellite code, and that is called as your delta T, that is nothing your transit time. So what happens, first what you are saying, you are sending the pseudo-random codes are sent by the satellite to the station, monitoring station. So that we have studied in digital communication, right? Whenever you are transmitting the data, modulated data to the receiver through a particular channel, at the receiver end also you have to apply some carrier signal. Yes or no? If that carrier signal is completely synchronous, they both are synchronous in terms of phase and the frequency and the time, then you will be getting the original data. Here also the similar way, if the signal are completely, the received signal whatever you are getting from the satellite code, that codes what the code you are having, that code if you are same, then you will be getting the proper data. So full correlation will be obtained, you get a proper signal and of the receiver and the satellite random codes. Then the receiver, what it does, it compares the two codes what it has received, that is nothing but your modulated code, and the one more code which that has been generated, and it takes or calculates a delay how much it requires to get your original code, means it has to subtract. So this is how your signal you will be getting the proper location also. I hope you are clear. Please relate this same example with your digital communication, the transmitter and the receiver side, any analog or digital, just relate that one and you will be clearly understand what is the concept here also. Clear, ma? So as to determine the receiver, it has to be find out where the satellite is been located and how far are the satellites. So for that reason, we are going to find this the working in a 2D as well as in 3D. So that's the reason we have found determining the receiver position in 2D as well as in 3D concept. So this we have discussed properly in the last class, how we are going to find out the position of your user by using the 4 satellite system. So these are the 4 basic equation. I'll give these notes also for your paper. The basic equation has to find out the receiver position when we are using the 4 satellites. Same, the coordinates are used by the different satellites. So satellite 1, 2, 3, 4, and the point of interaction here you will get to find the receiver position properly. Okay. So I hope you are clear with the principle of operation of your GPS. Now let's just move on to the orbit of the GPS. Now everyone knows what is the orbit. Means the moving path, the rotating path. Yes. So everyone knows what is an orbit, right? Orbit is nothing but is gravitationally curved trajectory of a particular object, such as like planets or the stars or the satellites that will be revolving around the earth, right? So here we have to know what is the orbit of the particular satellite also. So our GPS satellites that will be working on the medium earth orbit. So there are different orbits of the earth. Okay, so satellite or the GPS will be moving or using this one, medium earth orbit. So GPS satellites fly in the medium earth orbit at an altitude of approximately 20,200 kilometers far from the earth. That is nothing but 12,550 miles away from the earth. So each satellite circles the earth twice a day only. So for one complete orbit, for one complete rotation of that particular satellite around the earth, so that rotations will be only 2. It takes only, these satellites will be taking only 2 circles of the earth twice a day. So as it will be on which orbit? Medium earth orbit. So similarly that we are having different 4 different earth orbits, like LEO, that is nothing but low earth orbit, MEO, that is a medium earth orbit, GEO, geostationary orbit. Okay, geostationary, or we can also call it as geostationary equatorial orbit also. Okay, this is how your orbit mechanism will be done, and there is this orbit mechanism actually is defined completely by a great scientist called as Kepler's law. This we have already studied something about in physics also, I think. So all the orbital mechanisms are told or explained by the the scientist called as Kepler, and he has given us 3 different laws which are called as Kepler's first law, Kepler's second law, and Kepler's third law. So this is the lower earth orbit. Okay, this mainly this lower earth orbit where we will be getting the satellite, what we'll call TV broadcasting or the communication purpose, we'll be using that one. Then you will be having MEO, medium earth orbit, then geostationary orbit. This is the large one which you final, the geostationary orbit. This is called as your geostationary orbit. And this is apogee and perigee. What is meant by apogee and perigee? Perigee or the perigee, I am unable to pronounce it properly actually. This perigee, it is a point in the orbit of a satellite at which it is very nearest to the earth or center of the earth. So this perigee is nothing but, by seeing the figure you can understand what is perigee. The term perigee is nothing but the point in the orbit of a satellite at which it is nearest to the Earth's orbit. This one. When it comes to the apogee, it is quite opposite to that one. The point in the orbit of a satellite at which it is very far to the Earth's orbit. So this apogee will be the farthest point of the Earth's orbit, and perigee is the nearest point at your Earth's orbit. So these are the terms that are very much required for you getting the knowledge in the GPS. Okay. So here we can see clearly about the different satellite orbits and how much periods they require actually, what are the footprints, means how much area they are covering. First I have already said LEO, that is nothing but your low Earth orbit. In this low Earth orbit, the altitude, the range of this one is 160 to 2000 kilometers. Means the period will be of 88 to 127 minutes. and these low Earth orbit in these satellites, if the satellites are revolving in this particular orbit, means that satellite will be used or gives the application for the internet, whatever the internet, whatever Wi-Fi we are using, that all satellites will be revolving in your lower Earth's orbit. And the applications or the examples where the satellites will be using, that one is your internet, data, voice communication satellites, Earth's observation satellites, spy satellites. Okay, they are all used for your, means the applications which are used by these particular satellites will be used in LEO satellites, that is nothing but lower Earth orbits. When comes to the MEO, medium Earth satellites, this is the satellite or the orbit which we are using for the GPS. Fine. So this is the medium Earth orbit, okay, at the range of 12,550 miles away from the Earth. So the satellites which they will be moving is your, and 24 hours means 12 hours, only 2 satellites, 2 circles will be done. Third comes to the very largest orbit, geostationary satellite, where it will be using for the satellite TV. Only one period will be done, and the range or the distance between that from Earth to that particular orbit is your altitude of 35,786 kilometers away from the Earth's orbit. Okay, and the period is of 24 hours. So this is how your satellites will be kept in different orbits. Low Earth orbit, where you all the normal like internet, voice communication, that particular satellites are been placed. In your medium Earth orbits, which is the range of 2,000 to 35,786 kilometers, and the period is of your 127 minutes to 24 minutes. Here mainly used for the location. Okay, GPS location. So that's the reason we are using this medium Earth satellite location and navigation purpose they are used. See the applications over here. And for the geostationary satellites, that particular orbits, it will be used for the satellite TVs. So these are the different applications for your satellite orbits. Now move on to the satellite orbital mechanisms, means the 3 laws which have been given by the Kepler. So these are the 3 laws or the Kepler's law. Okay, Kepler's law provides a concise and a simple description of the motion of the planets, like how we are going to find out these planets. So I have given about a LEO, MEO and a GEO. Okay, so before moving to the different laws, we just go to see what is an orbital period also. Okay, so the orbital period of the satellite is the time it takes to return the same place in the orbit when it has started from. So the significance of this orbital period gives the visible position of the satellites that will be repeating or revolving around themselves for every day. So as we have said already that we are using a MEO orbit, yes or no? So medium Earth orbit, so it is 20,200 kilometers a mile away from the Earth. So it requires, so it takes only 2 turns or the 2 rotations around the Earth. So that's the reason, hence the orbital period is exactly half of the sidereal of the day. Means what is the sidereal? The complete reel is nothing but your 24 hours. So half of that particular one is nothing but your 12 hours. So one satellite that will be revolving around the Earth, it takes 12 hours to complete one rotation. So in 24 hours it will be taking 2 rotations of the Earth. So orbital period of the satellite is the time it takes to return the same position in the orbit when it has started. And the time taken by that one is your 11 hours 57 minutes and 57.26 seconds. So approximately we'll give it as 12 hours. So let's just start clearly what are the Kepler's 3 laws. The first law, laws of planetary motions. These are very important for your finals also, Kepler's law. So the laws of planetary, first law is law of ellipse, second is law of equal areas, and third one is your harmonic law. So this Kepler law, why we require all this Kepler's law is to provide a proper and a simple description of the motion of the planets. Because we are using satellites, we are going to completely know the position of the user, how the satellites will be revolving, how they are getting the data. For that one we require all these descriptions. Means law of ellipse, how it will be revolving, the area, how much area it will be covering, and what is the harmonic law of that particular one. So let's just discuss first law, Kepler's first law. In the Kepler's first law, what we have said in the Kepler's first law, which law is that one? Law of ellipse. So the planet follow elliptical orbit with the sun at one focus of the ellipse. So how much it will be following? It is elliptical in the form. So all the planets follow the elliptical orbit with the sun at one focus, means at one point, at one particular focus of the ellipse. So as the foci gets closer, then these ellipse will approaches to the circle. See here, when your focus, this foci is far, it's in the far space, in the far distance, then it is highly elliptical or eccentrical. When it is having some shorter distance and moderately eccentric, when it is somewhat near and it gets very closer, then you will be getting the circular approach. So this here you are getting the zero eccentricity. So here, according to Kepler's first law, the law of ellipse, the orbit of the planets or ellipse with the sun at one focus, or according to R, we can say that the orbits of the satellite, this one, note this one, the orbits of the satellite around the earth or ellipse with the earth of one focus. So this is your satellite, and this is the orbit is not in the circular one because they are having the focus which are very far, and their orbit will be in the elliptical form. So the orbit of the satellites around the earth are in the ellipse with the earth at one focus. So this is the Kepler's first law, that is law of ellipse. If this foci is near to that one, then they will become centrical. I mean, that is nothing but circular. Okay. Then the second law, Kepler's second law, that is nothing but your, what was the second law? Law of equal areas. Okay. As a planet orbits the sun, okay, all the planets will be revolving around the sun. Similarly, all the satellites will be revolving around the earth. So that's the reason the Kepler has given. So as the planets orbits the sun, it moves in such a way that a line drawn from the sun to the planet sweeps out equal areas in the equal time intervals. So whenever if you are going to draw a particular line from the sun to the earth, at any particular time in the sense equal time intervals, so 2 seconds, 4 seconds or 5 seconds, then what happens, it will be moving in such a way that the line drawn from the sun to the planet sweeps out equal areas. Then you will be finding the equal area for every time interval. Okay, so near the here in every 30 days a planet sweeps out an area that should be short wide. Then after in 30 days a planet sweeps out an area that is long, but it will be narrow. If you calculate the area, then you will be getting the equal areas only. So here the law of equal areas, that is Kepler's second law, as the planet orbits the sun, it moves in such a way that the line drawn from the sun or the line drawn from the earth to the planet or to the satellite sweeps out equal areas in equal time intervals. So the what I'll give you the example, this is earth, so this is the satellite. So T3 and T2 are the time intervals of your satellite, T1 and T0 are the time intervals of your earth. So what we are saying, T1 minus T0 will be equals to the T3 minus T2. So this area will be wide and this is narrow, but the area if you are going to calculate, that area will be same. So what I can say that as the satellites orbit, I am reframing the particular sentence, I think you will note it down. As a satellite orbits the earth, it moves in such a way that if the line is drawn from the earth to the satellite, then it sweeps out equal areas in the equal time intervals. If you consider the equal time intervals and you calculate the area, means if you sweep out that particular area, that particular areas will be same. So this is the second law of Kepler's equation. First one is law of ellipse, means all they will be in the orbits will be in the elliptical form. Second one is that if you draw the line from the particular sun to earth or from the earth to the satellite, that particular areas will be same in equal time intervals. Okay, so satellites will be traveling at the varying speeds. And the third one is your law of harmonics. So what is the third law? Kepler's third law, law of harmonics, the ratio of the square of the planets. The ratio of the square of the planet's orbit period and the cube of the mean distance from the sun is constant. Listen it once again carefully. Ratio of time, actually time of that planet's orbit's period, that particular period, the time that required for that planet's orbit, nothing but your satellite's orbit, the time required for the satellite's orbit, that square, and the cubes of the mean distance of that particular one of your earth is should be constant. So t1 square by t2 square is equals to a1 cube divided by a2 cube, that should be equals to a constant. This is your Kepler's third law. So all these here having the three laws. First law is your Kepler's first law is law of ellipse. So the your orbit will be in the elliptical form. Second one is second law is your law of equal areas. When you calculate the areas from a particular line, then both the areas will be equal. And the third one is law of harmonic, where the square of the planet's orbit is equals to the cubes of the mean square, mean distance, that is equals to a particular constant. So these are the three laws of your Kepler's, or the orbital mechanisms. That orbital mechanisms is given by a scientist called as Kepler, and he has given us the three laws. So this orbital mechanism is also consisting of some particular orbital elements, or it is also given name as the Keplerian elements. So there are 6 different particular elements which have been discussed, which are very important. And the main purpose why we have gone for the elements, why we are going to study about these elements here, because as to get the position, a user position all through with the satellite is quite important. So each and every particular element is very important as to find all these things. So as to get the discriminate or the discriminate value of one satellite from other satellites, and predict whether a satellite will be in the future or it has been in the past, and determine the amount and direction of the maneuver. So these are the purposes why we require these elements, Keplerian elements, or we also called it as orbital elements. If someone asks, in the examiner asks in the 2 marks question, you have to name all the 6 different elements which are required. In case of the long answer questions, you have to describe briefly about all these elements. So what is the main purpose? As to find out the deterministic one satellite from the other satellites we are required, if there is any satellite in the past or the future, if you are getting, and how much amount we require for that one, or how much direction time required, whatever. So these are the purposes that are required for to know about your orbital elements. So the orbital elements that we are going to see are these 6. These are the 6 Keplerian elements. First one is size or the period, which is denoted by A, which is a semi-major axis of the orbit. That are these 6 elements. I'll explain you clearly. First one is size or the period of the semi-major axis of the orbit. Second one is the shape, which is important, circular or ellipse, which is denoted by the letter E. Okay. Eccentricity, which is E is nothing but your orbit's eccentricity. Third one is inclination, denoted by the letter I, small I, in the Earth's inclination with respect to the central body's plane. Then next you are having the right ascension, which is given as the ohm. Okay, just a symbol for that one, which shows the right ascensions of the ascending nodes. I'll also tell you about what is an ascending node. Then argument of perigee, which is denoted by the omega. I have already said what is perigee, the point in the orbit of the satellite at which it is very nearest to the earth. When it comes to the apogee, which is very far from the earth's orbit. Then comes to the last one is a true anomaly, which is given as the denoted by the letter V. Okay, these 6 parameters I'm going to discuss in the next class clearly. So before we end one class, I'll give just one very first element, that's a Keplerian element, that is size or the period of the orbit. So size of the period. So this is your first element of the Keplerian elements, 6 Keplerian elements. Size is how big or small your satellite's orbit is. So this is size is nothing but not the size of your satellite or something. Here you are finding the size of the your particular orbit. So satellite takes which orbit, or the larger orbit or the smaller orbit. So size is how big your satellite's orbit is, or how small is your satellite's orbit. This one, this particular one. So it defines the semi-major axis. The axis which you are having here, it gives you the semi-major axis. So there are basically 4 sizes of the orbits. This we have already learned, right? Lower Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit or semi-synchronous orbit, highly equipped elliptical orbit and geosynchronous or geostationary orbit. LEO, MEO, HEO and GEO. Our GPS will be working on the which orbit? MEO orbit. That is nothing but medium Earth orbit, or the semi-synchronous orbit. The first one, size or the period A, which is denoted by the A, which will be giving you the semi-major axis, and that these sizes of this particular satellites are divided into 4 types, that is LEO, MEO, HEO and the GEO. LEO is lower Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, highly elliptical orbit, and GEO is geosynchronous or geostationary elliptical orbit also. Okay, these are the first part, the Keplerian element, or the first one in the Keplerian elements or the orbital elements. Then second comes here the shape, circular shape of that particular element. Shape is second one, which gives you E, which is an orbit's eccentricity. Okay, this is the second one. What is the second one? Why we are going for the elliptical orbits, or what are the characteristics of why you are going for the elliptical orbit? Is varying the speed, varying the altitude and asymmetric ground track. We can easily get the ground track, so that's the reason we are moving with these elliptical orbits. So the eccentricity, what is meant by eccentricity? It fixes the shape of the satellite's orbit. Okay, it tells how flat the orbit will be. If the eccentricity is 0, it will be in the circular. If it is 0.5, it is semi elliptical. 0.75 approximately to that one. If it is 0.9, then it is completely elliptical. So what eccentricity gives you? The fixes the shape of the satellite's orbits. It gives the shapes of that particular orbits, and it tells how flat the orbit is. What are the orbit is? First orbit I am giving here: circular, semicircular, then semi-elliptical, and it is elliptical. This parameter indicates the deviation of the orbit from a perfect circle. It gives the deviation from the perfect circle to the perfect elliptical, right? So a circular orbit has a eccentricity of 0. E shows the eccentricity. If E is equals to 0, then you can easily say that your Earth's orbit, the satellite orbit, is in the circular motion. If it is 0.5, semicircular. If it is 0.75, semi-elliptical, and it is 0.9, it is completely elliptical. Okay, while a highly elliptical orbit is closer to, but will be always less than 1. So we are giving it as 0.9 for this. Which one? Eccentricity, which is denoted by small e. So this is the second element of your Keplerian element, that is your eccentricity. First one was the size, means how much the size of the orbit was there, and depending upon that one we were having 4 sizes. Second, you had eccentricity. Depending upon the value of the eccentricity, we can say that which shape of the orbit we are having. Third comes your third Keplerian element is your inclination, which is denoted by the letter I. So this is the orbital inclination, third one. So inclination is a tilt of the orbit. Here what you are saying is just tilt in this particular orbit. So it is an angle measured in terms of degrees. If it in terms of degrees, we can find how much is the inclination of that particular orbit. That is nothing but somewhat tilt, some difference in that particular orbit. At the 0 degrees of the inclination, you are orbiting the equator. If it is 0 degrees, it is at the equator. At the 90 degrees of the inclination, you are at the polar orbit. So by knowing the inclination in terms of degrees, so always inclination is measured in terms of degrees. If the inclination I is equals to 0 degrees, then your orbit is at the equator, and if inclination I is equals to 90 degrees of the inclination, then it is in the polar orbit. So this is how it is showing the orbit is at equators or at the polar orbits. So here we are having a proper figure over here for the inclination. At the equatorial, if I is equals to 0 or 180 degrees, your orbit is at a proper equatorial. Then I is equals to 0 is less than equals to I or less than 90 degrees. From 0 to 90 degrees, then your inclination will be of your prograde. Okay, it is at the prograde. Then if I is equals to 90 degrees, it is exactly at the polar axis. As I have already said here, at 90 degrees of inclination, you are at the polar orbit, and at 0 degrees of the inclination, your orbit is at the equator. Correct? it is retrograde if your angle inclination is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. This is how. This is prograde, this is retrograde. So opposite of this one. So minus 90 degrees, something like that. So it is at the equatorial at the 0 degrees, and I is equals to 90 degrees. It is the polar axis. And from 0 to 90 degrees it is prograde, and from 90 degrees to 180 degrees it is retrograde. So this is the inclination, one of the orbital elements or the Keplerian elements. So I hope you are clear with this. First three Keplerian elements or the orbital elements. First one is size or the period. Size is nothing but which gives you the semi-major axis of the orbit, and depending upon that one we can know that it is in the Leo, Meo or the Geo. Okay, so depending upon that one we are going to find out the orbits. Second one is a shape, means the orbital shape, either it is in circular or in the ellipse. That can be defined by the eccentricity by giving the values as eccentricity 0 to 0.9. It cannot be reached 1. It is compulsory. Eccentricity value is always less than 1. So if its eccentricity E is equals to 0.9, then the shape of that particular orbit will be in ellipse. If it is 0, then it is in circular. Third one, inclination, which shows that the where your particular orbit will be there. It will be depending upon the degree. If I is equals to 0, then it is gives you it is in the elevation equatorial point. If it is 90 degrees, it is in the polar ones. Okay, it is in the polar orbit. It gives the you where it is actually in your orbiting. You are orbiting in the equator, you are orbiting in the polar orbit, or if you are orbiting in the prograde, or if you are orbiting in retrograde. It gives you the information of your orbits. So these are the three elements, first three elements of the Keplerian elements. Next three elements of this Keplerian elements or the orbital elements will be discussed in the next class. I hope you are all clear with the this class, today's class. I request all the students to please do watch this, because the subject which you have selected is not that much easy. It requires some efforts. So please do watch the video, make a notes also. In case of any doubts, please do let me know, ma'am. Thank you.